As an educator, learning designer, lifelong student, and member of the human race, I've been learning since the day I was born, and likely will keep learning until the moment I die. As I undertake this doctoral journey in distance education, I'm left pondering the various theories of learning and which resonates with me. Am I a behaviorist? Certainly. Like Pavlov's dog, I respond to stimuli and act according to learned patterns of behavior. Am I a cognitivist? Well, I certainly hope so, or all my years of piling information, experiences, and emotions into my neurons was a complete waste of time. I'm pretty certain that Descartes has it right. It's not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. Am I a constructivist? Most definitely. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. Sure, I learn a lot of facts, but I like putting them into practice. Interpreting, manipulating what I know to meet my needs in any given situation. So there I was, feeling good about myself and my place in learning theory, and then along come Siemens and Downs and throw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. Over the next few minutes, we will explore what Siemens and Downs are proposing and outline a brief history of the Connectivism movement. We will debate if this is a learning theory or something else, and why it's important to us as learners and educators now that we are moving into the online digital spaces. Since Connectivism did not emerge from a vacuum, we need to take a brief look at the learning theory landscape before the turn of the century. Behaviorist approaches exemplified by Thorndike, Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner were all the rage in the 20th century until the mid-70s, giving rise to the cognitivist approach in the mid to late 70s, exemplified by Crick, Lockhart, Tulving, and Ausubel, with the emergence of constructivist approaches in 1990s as exemplified by Cooper and Wilson. As we entered into the 21st century, we were due for a new learning theory, not just because a decade had passed since the last one, but also because the last decade saw the advent of the World Wide Web and the explosion of networked information and the globalization of access. Behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism are the most often cited theories in educational contexts, but they were developed in a time when technology had less impact on teaching and learning. Facing significant changes in how, where, when, and why the world learns, George Siemens and Stephen Downs have proposed and experimented with a theoretical alternative that gives the learner increased autonomy and agency in their learning while challenging the limitations to the existing theories within a networked society. Siemens says that learning theories are concerned with the actual process of learning, not with the value of what is being learned. In a networked world, the very manner of information that we acquire is worth exploring. Siemens argues that connectivism offers a way to manage our current underlying social reality of rapid and mutating knowledge acquisition. He goes on to argue that how we teach and learn has to change. It's hard to argue with that. Connectivism is the integration of principles explored by chaos, network, complexity, and self-organization theories. Chaos theory because our learning process now occurs within nebulous environments of shifting core elements, not entirely under the control of the individual. Network theory because learning or applying knowledge in action can, and in many cases, resides outside of the learner. Examples that Siemens and Downs give are organizations and databases that are focused on connecting specialized information sets via information networks. They stress that access and use of these is more important than our current state of knowing, because access provides the knowledge. Complexity and self-organization theory because connectivism is driven by the understanding that decisions are based on rapidly altering foundations. New information is continually being acquired. The ability to draw distinctions between important and unimportant information is vital. The ability to recognize when new information alters the landscape based on decisions made yesterday is also critical. Even emergent principles come into play. This theoretical background and connectivism foreshadow the emergence of new hybrid biological digital entities, like so many of us experience today via the smartphone. Knowledge acquisition, which is the point of learning, becomes meaningless when everyone has access to unlimited knowledge. Siemens breaks down connectivism into the following principles. Learning is a process of connecting specialized nodes of information sources. Learning may reside in non-human appliances, corporations, databases, information agents, or others. Nurturing and maintaining connections is needed to facilitate continual learning, and the ability to see connections between fields, ideas, and concepts is a core skill. Learning and knowledge rests in the diversity of opinions. The capacity to know more is now more critical than what is currently known. And recognizing the flexibility and changeability of knowledge, currency, the ability to maintain accurate and up-to-date knowledge, is the intent of all connectivist learning activities. The American Society of Training and Documentation claims that knowledge is doubling every 18 months. And this graph of articles published in Digital Humanities visually demonstrates the acceleration of information available to the learner in a single discipline. Managing a single field is a challenge, but maintaining currency across a broad spectrum of knowledge is absolutely impossible. In this environment, knowledge has to take second place to access to knowledge. The starting point of connectivism is the individual. However, all knowledge is comprised of a network of individual nodes which feed into organizations and institutions, which in turn feed back into the network, and then both of these continue to provide learning to the individual. This cyclical, recursive process of knowledge creation and recreation allows learners to remain current in their field through the connections they have formed. This would certainly explain why the elderly have difficulty keeping up with change. As they retire and their personal networks shrink, it becomes harder to maintain the connections vital to maintaining their knowledge base current. This would also support early development theories, as the young tend to grow their number of connections during their learning. But are the connections learning, or simply a means to learning? This is the challenge that connectivism faces as a learning theory. Decision-making is itself a learning process. Choosing what to learn and the meaning of incoming information is seen through the lens of a shifting reality. While there is a right answer now, it may be wrong tomorrow due to alterations in the information climate affecting the decision. In 2008, a year after starting at Athabasca University, I took the Connectivism and Connective Knowledge course, and I have to admit I was baffled, bewildered, and didn't participate in this innovative CMOOC because having to maneuver all the media without some sort of structural framework frustrated me. As a way to demonstrate that people can learn via RSS feeds, Moodle, blogs, virtual environments, synchronous and asynchronous online meetings, this was a good experiment. But I couldn't wrap my head around learning without a clear outcome or objective in mind. Those behavior, cognitive, and constructivist tendencies screamed their violent opposition to what was happening in front of me. This answered the how I learn, but not the what or the why. We talked about RSS feeds, Moodle, blogs, virtual environments, synchronous and asynchronous online meetings, and other potential technologies for learning. If connectivist learning is about the tools, the network of nodes, or how the knowledge is distributed, then we already had a connectivist learning theory using pencils, paper, Pony Express, and libraries. From this perspective, we're looking at the process how knowledge is built in a network society. But knowledge construction is not the same as a theory of learning. And I would go so far as to say that most, if not all, learning in connectivist environments is still constructivist in nature, just utilizing connectivist technologies. So is connectivism a learning theory? Well, yes and no. It is a theory, and with many possible interpretations of learning being tossed about, it can certainly be seen as a learning theory. It's certainly a theory about how people learn in the 21st century using technologies that were only hinted at in the most avant-garde sci-fi of the 20th century. But it's not really a standalone learning theory that supersedes behaviorist, cognitivist, and constructivist principles. Rather, it's a theoretical lens that leverages current tools and our network reality as enhancements to the existing theories. Online learning is becoming the learning mode of choice for many. As Ali states in Terry Anderson's The Theory and Practice of Online Learning, What is needed is not a new standalone theory for the digital age, but a model that integrates the different theories to guide the design of online learning materials. This is exactly what connectivist theory provides for the learner, learning designer, educator, and every global citizen who will need to engage in lifelong learning to function in our rapidly changing world.